In 1998, a man named Brian Williams walked into the headquarters of Universal Records in New York. He was from the Magnolia Projects in New Orleans. He had no major label experience. He had no industry lawyer of his own. He walked out with $30 million. He kept his masters. He kept his publishing. Universal would only get 15% of profits, and only after he recouped. It is to this day one of the best deals any independent label has ever signed. And the reason Brian Williams, who you know as Birdman, held the line so hard. He told the story years later on a podcast. He said, "I lost too much already. I lost my family. I'm not giving them anything." Remember those words. I'm not giving them anything.
Because you own 100% of everything, and that seems like it's rare.
I just felt like I didn't feel like that I lost so much to gain a little. I wasn't gonna let the labels take from me what I already lost. I lost my mama, my daddy, my brother, my sister. I lost so much to gain a little. So to me, either we're gonna play ball my way or fuck it. Because I was that confident about my success.
Because 17 years later, the kid he signed at the age of 11 would walk into a courtroom and ask a judge for $51 million in money he says was never paid. This is the story of how the man who refused to give Universal a single percent he didn't have to, built an empire by doing to a child exactly what he had spent his whole career swearing he would never let anyone do to him. By the time Lil Wayne sued Cash Money in 2015, the label had sold over 1 billion albums. Drake, signed to Wayne's imprint, was on his way to becoming the most streamed artist on the planet. Nicki Minaj, also signed under Wayne, had built one of the biggest fan bases in pop music, and Wayne himself, that Carter III, had sold over 3 million copies in the United States alone. Milli won a Grammy. Lollipop topped the Hot 100. On paper, he was one of the most commercially successful rappers alive. In reality, his court filing alleged Cash Money had withheld a $10 million advance for Thought Carter 5, paying him only $2 million of the $8 he was contractually owed to start recording and refusing to pay the additional $2 million on completion. And the album itself, done. Finished, sitting on a shelf. Wayne told Rolling Stone, "It's super done. Cake baked, icing on top, candles lit. It's that stash house money." So here's the question this video exists to answer. How does an artist who has sold tens of millions of records, who built the careers of Drake and Nicki Minaj, who is by every external measure rich and famous and on top of the world, how does that artist end up on Twitter in 2014 calling himself a prisoner? The answer is not in the music. The answer is in the contract he signed when he was 11. Cash Money Records was founded in 1991 by two brothers from uptown New Orleans, Brian, who called himself Baby, and later Birdman, and Ronald, called Slim. They named the label after the drug gang from the movie New Jack City. For the first 6 years, they sold tapes out of car trunks and corner stores. Their first artist, Kilo G, was murdered in 1997. Brian Williams will tell you in interviews that he had already buried more friends than he could name. He'll say, "I lost everything already." So when Universal came calling in 1998, he made a decision that would shape every relationship Cash Money ever had after that day. He decided he would never lose anything again to anyone. The Universal deal closed on terms that, at the time, were unheard of. 3 years, $30 million, a $2 million annual advance, ownership of every master recording, 85% of profits to Cash Money, 15% to Universal. Music industry veteran Russell Simmons said at the time, "This is the kind of deal Madonna or Michael Jackson would be lucky to get after a decade on top." And here's the detail that matters most for our story. In the same year that deal was signed, Cash Money had a 15-year-old on its roster who had been recording professionally since he was 11. His name was Dwayne Carter. He had walked into the Cash Money office at the age of 8, leaving freestyles on Brian Williams' answering machine until they let him hang around. At 11, they signed him. He became, at the time, the youngest signee in Cash Money history. Now think carefully about the asymmetry in that room. On one side, two brothers who had just spent 6 years learning the business by losing money, friends, and family. Two men who would walk into Universal a few years later and refuse to give up a single point they didn't have to. On the other side, a child whose father had abandoned him, a child who had recently by accident shot himself in the chest. There is no reporting that Dwayne Carter had his own attorney in that room. Here's where it gets complicated, because what Birdman built was not just a label, it was a family. He called Wayne his son. Wayne called him Daddy. On records, in interviews, in lyrics, Wayne got Cash Money tattooed tattooed across his stomach. They kissed on the lips at award shows. The internet had a field day. They didn't care. It was, they said, what real love between men looked like. And for 15 years, that family produced hits. Tha Block Is Hot went platinum when Wayne was 17. That Carter. Tha Carter 2. Tha Carter 3. The mixtape run from 2004 to 2008. Da Drought, Dedication 1, 2, 3. Rolling Stone called Da Drought 3 one of the best albums of 2007, and it was technically never even released commercially. In 2005, Wayne launched his own imprint inside Cash Money. He called it Young Money. In 2009, Young Money signed Drake. Now, listen to how that signing was structured, because this is where the trap closes. Young Money was not Lil Wayne's company. It was a joint venture in which Wayne owned 49%. Birdman and Cash Money owned the other 51%. Wayne could not sign artists to his own label without Cash Money's approval. Every dollar that came in had to flow through the parent company first. And in 2009, when Drake signed to Young Money, the contract gave Wayne 1/3 of the net profits Drake generated. Net profits, not gross. After Cash Money decided what the costs were. Now, here's the structural problem. Cash Money was, by multiple accounts and multiple lawsuits, a company with what the artist Bangladesh, the producer of Amili, called a serious bookkeeping issue. Bangladesh, who produced one of the biggest hits of Wayne's career, had to sue Cash Money in 2010 just to get his royalties. Turk, one of the original Hot Boys, sued for unpaid residuals. He says he never received artist royalties, never received publishing, never received what he was owed across albums that sold 1.5 million copies. Tyga, who was 17 when he signed, later sued for 10 million. The lawyer who negotiated his contract also represented Cash Money, a conflict of interest that his suit alleged was not disclosed to him. This is a pattern, not an accident. And in 2008, Lil Wayne re-signed with the label after the success of Carter III. The new agreement obligated Cash Money to keep $1 million in a Young Money account at all times to cover overhead, and to pay Wayne his 49% share of Young Money profits monthly. In 2009, the deal was renegotiated again. Wayne would now receive a $10 million advance for each solo album, $8 million at the start of recording, $2 million on completion. That Carter 5 was supposed to drop in May 2014. Then December 2014. Then nothing. In December 2014, Wayne tweeted that Birdman was holding the album hostage. The album he had finished. The album he was contractually owed $8 million to start and $2 more on completion. Wayne says he received only $2 million of the 8, and of the $4 million still owed, plus the completion advance, plus the royalties on his own catalog, plus the money owed to Young Money for Drake and Nicki, the total Wayne calculated he was missing came to $51 million. On January 28, 2015, he filed. On the same album he had spent years recording, on the label he had built into a billion-dollar company, on the man he called his father, Lil Wayne sued for $51 million. Now go back to 1998. Go back to the room where Brian Williams sat across from Universal executives and refused to give them anything. The room where he said, "I lost too much already. I'm not letting them own me." That deal, the Cash Money / Universal deal, gave Birdman ownership of every master. He kept his publishing. He kept 85% of profits. He fought for every percentage point. He walked in with no leverage and walked out with the keys to the kingdom because he understood deeply what happens to people in this industry who don't own what they make. In the same year, in the same office, an 11-year-old child signed a contract that gave him almost none of those things, and then the company built on that imbalance signed Drake under terms where Wayne, Drake's actual mentor and label head, got 1/3 of net profits and no copyright control. Then it signed Nicki Minaj under similar terms, then Tyga, then a dozen others. The lesson Birdman learned from his own life: never let anyone own what you make, became the business model he refused to extend to anyone else. His greatest insight, the one that made him rich, was that the people across the table from him would always try to take more than they were entitled to. He just decided that across the table from him would always be where his own artists were sitting. In June 2018, the lawsuit settled. The terms are confidential, but Forbes reported a figure of around $10 million, and other sources said well over that. Wayne walked away with full ownership of Young Money, every Drake master, every Nicki master, the whole catalog he had built. The Carter 5 was finally released on September 27, 2018. It debuted at number 1. It went platinum. In 2020, Lil Wayne sold the entire Young Money Master catalog, including Drake's pre-2018 albums, to Universal. He finally owned something, so he sold it. Lil Wayne's net worth today is estimated at around $170 million. By the standards of any normal human life, he is enormously wealthy. By the standards of an artist who sold the most copies of any album in 2008, who launched two of the biggest pop careers of the 21st century, who has 13 studio albums and over 165 million singles certified, the gap between what he made for the music industry and what he was paid for it is a sum no public filing has ever fully disclosed. Birdman and Cash Money also won. They still own their masters. They still collect royalties on a catalog Cash Money's CEO claims is worth $20 to $30 million a year. Every year, they survived a billion-dollar fight with their flagship artist and emerged with their independence intact. What they lost was something less measurable. Wayne does not call Birdman daddy anymore. Turk does not speak to them. Bangladesh does not speak to them. BG and Juvenile both left in 2002, citing financial mismanagement. Juvenile came back briefly and then left again. The original Hot Boys, the group that built the label, has not recorded together as a unit since the Universal deal made them all famous. The man who said, "I'm not giving them anything," never did. Not to Universal, not to his artists, not to his son. Remember the kid who left freestyles on Brian Williams' answering machine? Remember the 11-year-old who became the youngest signee in the label's history? Remember the man who walked into Universal in 1998 and refused to give up a single thing he didn't have to? They were the same story, told from two sides of the same desk. One of them learned very young that the only way to survive this industry was to own what you made. The other one was the 11-year-old he didn't teach. Cash Money sold over 1 billion albums. Lil Wayne is one of the reasons that number exists, and for 17 years he didn't own his own name.